Friends, it's bound to happen. If you have been using Scentsy wax and warmers for any amount of time, chances are you've probably had a waxident. Never heard of a waxident? Well, that's what we refer to an accident with spilled Scentsy wax. Here's the thing, guys. Most of these waxidents are easy to clean up. So stay tuned, and I'm going to go through different cleanup procedures on different surfaces with your Scentsy wax. Hey there, friends. My name is Jami Jo, and I just want to tell you a little bit about myself in case you've never popped by my channel. I am a Scentsy consultant, and I've been working with the company for over 15 years. I started all the way back in October of 2008, and I absolutely love sharing Scentsy with all of you guys, my friends, my family, my customers on YouTube right here. So I come to you guys every single day with a different video, either a review, a tip or a trick like we're doing today, or maybe even new product releases. So if that's something that you're excited about, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you are ready to just jump in and place a Scentsy order, you can do that anytime at JamiJoSellsWax.com and hang out with me, because I'm going to give you my personal phone number so you can shoot me a text if you have any other Scentsy related questions. Today, like I said, we are talking about some tips and tricks having to do with Scentsy waxidents. Now, waxidents can happen for many, many different reasons. Before we came up with these really cool things, the cotton cleanups, most waxidents happened while changing wax. We didn't realize that it was super easy to just soak it up with a cotton cleanup or with a cotton ball. So a lot of us would pick up our dish or pick up the whole warmer and take it to the trash can. Waxidents were happening all the time back in the day. Now that we have cotton cleanups and changing your Scentsy wax is a lot easier. By the way, I have an entire video about that if you don't know how to change your Scentsy wax. But that's a lot easier now. Changing Scentsy wax is easy peasy now. But hi, a lot of us have kids or animals or clumsy husbands, or perhaps we're just clumsy ourselves. So waxidents are going to happen. We're going to talk today about how to clean up those waxidents on different surfaces. A hard surface like a countertop or a wood floor. We're going to talk about tile. We're going to talk about clothing, and we're going to talk about carpet. So first, let's start with the tools that you are going to need. Now, the tools are going to vary based on what actually happened. So you're going to need a lot of times a heat source. A hairdryer is absolutely perfect, or sometimes even an iron is what you're going to need. I know that ironing clothes really isn't like the thing anymore, so some of you might not even have an iron. Hairdryer, we're gonna work with a hairdryer if you have that. Some of you even have a steamer that can come in handy. So that is what you're gonna need for a heat source on some of these cleanups. You're also going to need either a rag or a paper towel. Sometimes a paper bag is super helpful. Like they used to put our groceries in way back in the day. I know at my grocery store, you can still request a paper bag. And I sometimes do that just so I have a couple paper bags on hand, because they really do come in handy when it comes to waxident cleanup. And then the last thing you're going to need is some sort of scraper. I absolutely love these scrapers. This one's by Pampered Chef, but I've seen them even at Marshall's or Ross in the kitchen gadget section. It's actually for scraping pans, scraping food off of pans, but I find it super, super helpful when I have a waxident. You can use just a dull butter knife, or guys, you could even use a credit card, an old gift card, an ID, anything like that. Now, here's the first disclaimer. Actually, it's kind of like the only disclaimer with this. Always test any of these methods in an inconspicuous spot first, because different fabrics, different surfaces can react in different ways. So we don't want to ruin your brand new rug. We don't want to ruin your favorite t-shirt. So always try one of these methods in a spot that isn't going to be readily seen before you just go at it in a big waxident area. Let's start with the easiest one, and that is spills on countertops or hardwood floors. Now, of course, if you get it quick enough, and it's a fresh spill, just wipe it up with a paper towel. But chances are that the wax is going to harden like that, and a paper towel isn't going to get all of it. That's when this bad boy comes in handy. This is so easy, or like I said, you can use an ID or a credit card and just scrape it along the surface. It is just going to crumble apart, and I just scrape it into my hand or straight into a trash can, and it is an easy peasy cleanup. Now, if there's any residue left on the countertop, I recommend grabbing alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and a cotton ball or a rag or whatever. Now, make sure, again, that alcohol could possibly harm some surfaces, so test it in a little inconspicuous spot first. You don't want to damage the surface underneath. So especially be careful if you're going at it with a butter knife. That can definitely scratch a surface. That's why I love the plastic scraper or the ID, because it's a lot harder to harm a surface with those. If it is hard to scrape off, I've never had that happen, but if it's hard to scrape off, you can put a little ice cube. I'd put maybe a piece of cloth in between, but an ice cube to just really solidify it so it would scrape off easier. Now, spills on tile, really, that's going to be about the same. You're just going to scrape it off the tile. The problem here is when it gets into the grout. If it gets into the grout, it's kind of hard to scrape out with the scraper or the ID, and that's when it's really handy to make a paste of baking soda and water and just grab an old toothbrush. I didn't put that on the supply list, but maybe a toothbrush if you're working with tile to just scrub that out of the grout. That could be super, super helpful. Now let's move on to spills on clothing. I have had this happen so many times myself, and I have a lot of customers that come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I spilled it on my shirt, my favorite shirt. What do I do? So the first thing you want to do is just get off the larger chunks of wax. You can actually take a cloth and just kind of work it like this, and sometimes big chunks of the wax will come off. Now, there's still going to be some down in the fibers of the fabric, and sometimes some of the oil or color stays there. So here is where the iron comes in really helpful. Couple tips for you. Put down a very thick towel. Now you want to make sure it's a towel that you don't love, but put down a really thick towel on your ironing board so that wax doesn't go onto your ironing board cover, because then you'd just be transferring it to other clothes. We definitely don't want that to happen. So put a super thick towel down that you don't care about. Put your clothing item on there. And my favorite thing to grab now is that paper bag. You can use a rag or paper towels. I find the paper bag to be the best item. You're going to put that on top of the fabric, and you're just going to iron. That is going to warm up the wax, and between the thick paper or the thick towel on the bottom and the paper bag on top, those two things are going to soak up most of the wax on them. Again, you might want to grab some old rubbing alcohol. Not old rubbing alcohol, some rubbing alcohol, and either a cotton ball or even a Q-tip swab, something like that, to get the leftover oil or color out of the fabrics. But that iron and that paper bag are going to take the majority of it out. Now, the really tricky one is when it comes to carpet. If you have spilled Scentsy Wax on your carpet, this is a really tricky one, because obviously you can't like put that up on an ironing board. You can't scrape it out. Tricky, tricky, tricky. What you're going to want to do is grab an ice cube, an ice pack, anything that is frozen and solidified. I would suggest wrapping it in a towel, but you are going to put that on the carpeted surface that has the wax on it. The goal here is to freeze that wax to make it easier to get out. Now, then after it's frozen, you can take your butter knife, and you know how sometimes when we're cutting an apple, we might hold it like this and cut the apple? You're going to kind of want to do that and scrape along at the carpet. Now, be really careful that you're not pulling the fibers out of the carpet. You can even use a little set of tweezers, but I find that if I grab the tweezers, sometimes I was pulling fibers out of the carpet. That's really easy to do. With the butter knife, make sure it's a super dull knife, but it's easy to just kind of grab that frozen wax out of the carpet fibers. Again, you could try the iron and the paper bag method, but a lot of carpets are synthetic fibers, and an iron and synthetic fibers are just not going to get along. So if you're going to try that one out, absolutely make sure that you stick with an inconspicuous spot first to give it a try. Now, after this, after the cleaning, no matter what it is, you are always going to want to just clean the item, whether it's the floor, the cabinet, the clothing, or the carpet. If there is any residue left over, we highly recommend an oxygen-based cleaner like OxiClean, or that's not the only one. There's tons of others out there, but I think of OxiClean. That is a great cleaner to use. So remember, if you're going at a cleaner route, you're going to use something oxygen-based, you're going to use rubbing alcohol, or you are going to use baking soda and water mixture. Hopefully these little tricks will help you out if you have a Waxident. I will say that red color is really, really tricky to get out. Personally, I kind of second guess using red waxes. Now, there are some reds and some deep purples that I absolutely love, so I do use them, but keep that in mind if you often have spills, to stick with waxes that have less coloring in them, the light blues, the light greens. We do even have some that are clear. So if you are accident prone, or you have someone in your house that is, you're gonna want to stay away from those red and those deep purple waxes. Guys, I hope that this totally helps you clean up your Waxidents, because we know Waxidents happen and there's no use crying over spilled wax. Like I said at the first of this video, if you need to grab some new Scentsy Wax or some of those cotton cleanups, just jump over to JamiJoSellsWax.com. If you have any other questions that maybe I didn't answer in this video, feel free to put them in the comments below. Find me on social media. You can easily find me on Facebook or Instagram under Jami Jo Sells Wax. Or if you have a question that is specifically to you, and you want to just shoot me a text, you are welcome to do that. My number is 918-888-9690, and I am happy to answer any questions that you might have about your personal Waxident or any Scentsy products in general. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jami Jo, and I hope that you have a sensational day.